It's 11:47 p.m. in Seoul, but the rain isn't the only thing hitting the pavement. My heart is. Nyah Mensah had worked a 16-hour shift at Seoul General Hospital. Her scrubs smelled of antiseptic, stiff with the stress of the day. Her feet screamed inside white nursing shoes that never fit quite right. The rain was coming down sideways, cold enough to sting her cheeks. She just wanted to get home. Her phone said the Uber was a black sedan, license plate ending in 847. But the rain was blurring everything, turning Seoul into a watercolor nightmare of neon reflections. She saw the black sedan. She saw the 847. She yanked the door open, threw herself inside, grateful for the warmth. "Gangnam-gu, please," she said, water dripping from her braids onto leather seats that felt too expensive, too soft. Then she noticed the silence. No greeting, no K-pop on the radio, no acknowledgement. But there was something else. A scent, cedar, something darker underneath, like smoke from an expensive cigar extinguished hours ago. Nyah looked up. The driver's eyes were fixed on the rearview mirror, not on the road, not on traffic, on her. Then she turned her head slowly. There was a man in the back seat, right beside her, close enough that she could see the faint scar running from his left eyebrow to his temple, close enough that she could see his eyes, dark, unreadable, ancient despite his young face. He was beautiful the way a knife is beautiful, sharp, dangerous, final. She started, her voice catching. But before she could apologize, before she could explain the mistake, the locks clicked shut. The sound echoed in her bones. Then the car accelerated into the dark. Nyah's breath stopped. Her nursing training told her to stay calm. Her Nigerian instincts told her to pray. Her Korean reality told her one thing only: she knew this face. Every hospital corridor whispered about him. Every late-night newscast showed his picture. Every Seoul citizen knew his name but never spoke it above a murmur. Ryu Tae-Jin, the Prince of Shadows, the king of everything the law couldn't touch, the man people called the last thing you ever see. "You're not my driver," she said, her voice steadier than her trembling hands. His lips curved barely, not a smile, something colder. "No," he replied, his voice low, textured like velvet dragged over gravel. "I'm not." The city blurred outside the tinted windows. Rain continued its assault. Seoul swallowed them whole. Then Ryu Tae-Jin leaned forward, his eyes tracing her face like he was reading something written in a language only he understood. "But you," he said slowly, "are exactly who I think you are." Nyah's heart hammered, her world tilted. The rain didn't care. Seoul didn't stop. But in that black sedan, speeding through the midnight city, Nyah Mensah understood something terrifying. The mistake wasn't hers. It was destiny's. Destiny in Seoul's underworld had a name everyone feared to whisper: Ryu Tae-Jin. The car moved through Seoul like a blade through silk, smooth, silent, inevitable. Nyah pressed herself against the door, her hand instinctively reaching for the handle, but her fingers found only cold metal, locked, sealed, trapped. The rain hammered the roof in an endless rhythm. The city lights bled through the tinted windows, casting shadows across Tae-Jin's face. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken again. He simply watched her with the patience of someone who had never needed to rush. Nyah's throat felt dry. She swallowed hard, tasting fear at the back of her tongue, metallic, sharp. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. Silence. Then the car turned onto a darker road. The neon lights disappeared. The city fell away. Tae-Jin's eyes never left her face. They moved slowly, tracing her braids, her cheekbones, the defiance she couldn't quite hide despite her terror. "You're Nigerian," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "Half," Nyah replied, her chin lifting slightly. "My father was Korean." Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, but also something else, something almost like hunger. "Your mother's name," he said. "What was it?" Nyah's breath caught. Her mother had been dead for 3 years. Cancer had taken her slowly, painfully, far from the Nigerian sun she'd always missed. But here, in this cold car, this dangerous man was asking about her. "Nyah Mensah," Nyah whispered. "Why do you know that name?" Tae-Jin leaned back into the shadows. The scar on his brow seemed darker now, a reminder that he had survived things that would have destroyed lesser men. "Because your mother saved mine," he said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nyah stared at him, her mind racing through memories. Her mother had been a nurse too, before Seoul General, before the official hospitals. She had worked in places that didn't ask for paperwork, clinics in the shadows where the wounded came to survive. 10 years ago, Tae-Jin continued, his voice dropping lower. My mother was dying. No hospital would take her. The authorities wanted her dead. But Nyah Mensah didn't ask questions. She worked through the night. She didn't sleep for 48 hours. Then she saved her. Nyah felt tears prick her eyes. This was impossible. This was insane. But it was also the truth. Her mother had always said that debts travel through blood, that what you give to the universe remembers. Tae-Jin's jaw tightened. I never got to repay her, he said. She died before I could find her. Then his eyes met hers, dark, burning, resolute. But you're here now, he said softly. Her blood, her face, her daughter. The car slowed. Outside gates appeared through the rain, massive, iron, ancient. I don't hurt what I owe, Tae-Jin said. But his eyes said something else entirely. Something that made Nyah's heart race for reasons she couldn't name. The gates opened. The car passed through. Nyah's old life disappeared behind her. Then darkness swallowed them both. But somehow in that swallowing darkness she didn't feel afraid anymore. She felt seen. The estate rose from the darkness like a sleeping giant. Stone walls climbed toward the sky, disappearing into the rain-heavy clouds. Gardens stretched in every direction, perfectly manicured despite the midnight hour. Lanterns glowed along pathways, their lights soft, ancient, almost sacred. Nyah stepped out of the car, her nursing shoes sinking slightly into wet gravel. The cold hit her immediately, sharper here, away from the city's warmth. Her breath came out in small white clouds. Then Tae-Jin appeared beside her. He didn't touch her, he didn't need to. His presence was enough, gravitational, commanding, impossible to ignore. This way, he said. Nyah followed, her mind screaming questions she couldn't voice. Why was she here? What did he want? Why hadn't he just let her go? But something deeper whispered different questions. Why wasn't she running? Why did his voice feel like shelter instead of danger? They entered the mansion. The interior was a contradiction, traditional Korean architecture wrapped in modern silence, dark wood floors, paper screens filtering dim light, the scent of sandalwood drifting through invisible corridors. Servants appeared, bowed, disappeared. No one looked at Nyah directly, but she felt their curiosity pressing against her skin. Who is this woman? Why is she here? What has she done? Tae-Jin led her up a curved staircase, then down a hallway lined with paintings, ancestors with hard eyes, warriors from forgotten eras. He stopped at a door. This is yours, he said. Nyah blinked hers. He opened the door, revealing a room that stole her breath. A massive bed draped in white silk, windows overlooking the rain-soaked gardens, a bathroom with steam rising from an already drawn bath, fresh clothes laid out, her size, her style, colors she loved. How she started. I've known about you for 2 years, Tae-Jin interrupted quietly. Since I found your mother's records, since I learned she had a daughter working in Seoul. Nyah's skin prickled. You've been watching me, she said. It wasn't a question. Protecting, he corrected, from distances you never noticed. Then he turned, his silhouette framed by the dim hallway light. Stay here tonight, he said. Tomorrow we'll talk. But Nyah's voice stopped him. I'm not a prisoner, she said firmly. Her mother's spirit was rising in her blood. I'm not yours to keep. Tae-Jin paused. Then he looked over his shoulder, his dark eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her stomach tighten. No, he agreed softly, you're not. Then something dangerous flickered across his face. But you're here now, he said. The world outside doesn't know that. Until it does, leaving means dying. The door closed behind him. Nyah stood alone in the beautiful room. The bath called to her tired bones. The bed promised rest. But sleep felt impossible now, because Ryu Tae-Jin's last words echoed in her mind. Leaving means dying. Then why? She wondered, did staying feel like living? The rain continued outside. Seoul glittered in the distance. But Nyah Mensah was already somewhere else entirely. Somewhere she couldn't quite name. Somewhere terrifying, somewhere beginning. Morning came with pale gray light filtering through the windows. Nyah had slept somehow, impossibly, but her dreams had been filled with shadows wearing Tae-Jin's face. She rose slowly, her muscles aching from the previous day's shift, the previous day's nightmare, the previous day's transformation. Fresh clothes waited for her, a cream cashmere sweater, dark pants, shoes that fit perfectly. She dressed with trembling fingers, trying to ignore how intimately someone had studied her. Then the door opened. A woman stood there, elderly, with kind eyes that contradicted the severity of her traditional hanbok. Mr. Ryu requests your presence, she said in accented English. Please follow me. Nyah followed, her heart pounding with each step. They walked through corridors that seemed endless, past rooms filled with antique furniture, past windows overlooking misty mountains, past men with hard faces who stood at attention when she passed. Finally, they reached a room filled with morning light. Tae-Jin sat at a low table, a traditional Korean breakfast spread before him. But he wasn't eating. He was watching the door, watching her. Sit, he said. Nyah sat across from him, her back straight, her eyes defiant. I want answers, she said, all of them. Tae-Jin poured tea with steady hands. The liquid was golden, fragrant, steaming in the cold morning air. Your mother came to Seoul in 1998, he began. She was escaping something in Nigeria, something she never spoke about. She worked in the shadows because she had no papers. She healed the people hospitals refused. Nyah's chest tightened. This was her mother's hidden history, the years before Nyah was born, the years of survival. My mother was dying from a gunshot wound, Tae-Jin continued, his voice dropping lower. She had protected me from an attack meant for my father. The authorities wanted our entire family dead. No hospital would risk helping us. Then his eyes met Nyah's. But Nyah Mensah didn't care about politics, he said. She only cared about saving a life. She operated for 8 hours. She gave my mother her own blood. Then she disappeared before we could thank her. Nyah felt tears sliding down her cheeks. Her mother had never told her this, had carried this secret to her grave. I searched for her for years, Tae-Jin said quietly. But by the time I found her, she was already sick, already fatting. He paused, his jaw tightening. I watched her funeral from a distance, he admitted. I watched you cry. Nyah's breath caught. You were there, she whispered. I made a vow that day, Tae-Jin said. Her blood saved my mother. Your blood carries hers. I will never let harm touch you. But Nyah shook her head slowly. Gratitude isn't ownership, she said firmly. I'm not an ancestral debt to be collected. Tae-Jin's eyes flickered with something unexpected, respect. No, he agreed, you're not. Then he leaned forward slightly. But you're in danger now, because of me, because of last night. The words hung between them like smoke. What kind of danger? Nyah asked. 3 days passed in the fortress of silence. Nyah explored the mansion's endless corridors, but she always felt watched. Guards in shadows, servants who bowed but never spoke, cameras blinking red in corners she pretended not to notice. But the hardest part wasn't the surveillance, it was the food. Beautiful dishes arrived at every meal, elegant Korean cuisine that should have satisfied her. But something was missing, something that lived in her bones, something that tasted like home. On the fourth morning, Nyah walked into the kitchen. The space was massive, sterile, intimidating. Chrome surfaces gleamed under harsh lights. Chefs in white uniforms froze when they saw her. "I need ingredients," Nyah said, her voice steady despite their stares. "Tomatoes, onions, Scotch bonnet peppers, rice, long grain, not short." The head chef blinked. "Ma'am." "I'm cooking," Nyah interrupted. "You can help or you can watch." They watched. Then they helped. Within an hour, the sterile kitchen transformed. Tomatoes sizzled in hot oil. Onions caramelized to golden sweetness. The Scotch bonnets released their fierce heat into the air. The scent spread through the mansion like a declaration. Unfamiliar, bold, unapologetically Nigerian. Nyah stirred the pot with her eyes closed, letting the smell wrap around her like her mother's arms. This was who she was, not a debt, not a captive, a daughter of two worlds. "What is that?" His voice came from behind her, low, curious, almost vulnerable. Nyah didn't turn around. "Jollof rice," she said. "My mother's recipe, her mother taught her, her grandmother taught her mother." She finally turned. Tae-Jin stood in the doorway, his usual dark suit replaced with a simple black sweater. He looked different, less like a king, more like a man. "You're changing my kitchen," he said. "I'm claiming space," Nyah corrected. "If I'm going to stay here, I need to exist here, not just survive." Something shifted in his eyes. Then he stepped forward, closer than he'd ever been. Close enough that she could smell cedar mixed with something warmer now. "May I taste it?" he asked quietly. Nyah hesitated. This felt intimate, sharing food her mother made, sharing ancestry with a stranger. But he wasn't quite a stranger anymore. She spooned rice onto a plate, added the stew, presented it without ceremony. Tae-Jin took a bite. His eyes closed, his jaw stopped moving, then something remarkable happened, his mask cracked. For one moment, Ryu Tae-Jin looked like a boy tasting wonder for the first time. "This," he said slowly, "is what your mother carried with her." Nyah nodded, her throat tight. "Her whole life," she whispered. Tae-Jin took another bite, then another. The kitchen filled with the sound of eating, the scent of spices, the warmth of something unspoken building between them. Outside, Seoul waited. Inside, two worlds were merging. One plate of jollof rice at a time. But somewhere in the city, someone was watching the mansion. Someone who didn't like what they saw. The slow burn had begun, but so had the danger. Neither of them knew yet. It happened at midnight. Nyah couldn't sleep. The mansion's silence pressed against her too heavily. She walked the corridors like a ghost, her feet bare against cold wood floors. The lanterns were dimmed. The guards were somewhere else. The world felt suspended between seconds. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong, sharp, bitten off, almost inhuman. Pain. Someone was in pain. Nyah followed the sound, her nursing instincts overriding her fear. She moved through the shadows until she reached a door left slightly ajar. Light spilled through the crack. She pushed it open. Tae-Jin sat shirtless in the center of a sparse room. Blood ran down his side from a wound that looked fresh, ragged, dangerous. He held a needle in his trembling hand, trying to stitch himself closed. But his fingers weren't cooperating. The pain was too much. "What happened?" Nyah demanded, crossing the room before she could stop herself. His head snapped up, his eyes widened, then narrowed. "Leave," he said, his voice strained. "You're bleeding," she replied flatly. "I'm a nurse, sit still." Then she took the needle from his hand. He let her. That surprised her more than the wound itself. Nyah worked in silence, her hands steady despite her racing heart. His skin was warm beneath her fingers. The wound was deep but clean. A knife, she guessed. Someone had gotten close enough to hurt him. Who did this? She asked without looking up. An old enemy, he said through gritted teeth. They wanted to send a message. By killing you. By trying. Nyah's fingers paused. She looked at his face, the clenched jaw, the burning eyes, the scar that seemed ancient now. How many enemies do you have? She whispered. Enough to fill cemeteries, he replied, but not enough to stop me. She resumed stitching, each thread pulling his flesh closed with careful precision. You should have called for help, she said quietly. I don't trust easily, he admitted. But you trust me. The question hung between them like fragile glass. Tae-Jin was silent for a long moment. Then his hand moved, slowly, carefully, until his fingers wrapped around her wrist. Not restraining, holding. Your mother trusted me with her hands, he said softly. She never hesitated, she never judged, she just healed. His eyes met hers. You have her hands, he whispered. The same steadiness, the same warmth. Nyah's breath caught. Her heart was doing something dangerous, something she couldn't name. I'm not my mother, she said quietly. No, Tae-Jin agreed. Your fire where she was water, different. Equally necessary. She finished the final stitch, cut the thread, cleaned the wound with gentle precision. Then she stood. But his hand didn't release her wrist. Stay, he said. The word was barely audible, not a command, a request. Nyah looked at him, this terrifying man, bleeding, vulnerable, asking for something he'd probably never asked for before. She sat beside him. Neither spoke. The night wrapped around them both. But something had shifted in the silence. Something irreversible. Something dangerously beginning. The photograph was taken at dawn. Nyah had stepped onto the balcony to watch the sunrise over Seoul. The city spread below like scattered diamonds, beautiful despite its darkness. The morning air was cold against her skin, but she didn't care. For the first time in days, she felt something like peace. Then Tae-Jin appeared beside her. He stood closer than necessary, his shoulder almost touching hers. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The silence between them had become comfortable, weighted with unspoken understanding. But someone was watching. Across the valley, a camera lens caught the light. A finger pressed a button. The moment was frozen forever. The feared crime lord, the mysterious black woman, standing together like equals. By noon, Seoul's underground was burning with whispers. By evening, the whispers had become a wildfire. Who is she? Where did she come from? Why is he protecting her? Is she a spy? Is she his weakness? The photograph spread through encrypted channels like poison. Men who feared Tae-Jin studied the image with hungry eyes. Women who envied his power felt jealousy curl in their stomachs. Everyone had questions. Nobody had answers. Then the nickname emerged. The Black Queen. It spread through Seoul's shadows like a curse. In bars where criminals drank, in penthouses where elites schemed, in boardrooms where alliances crumbled. The Mafia prince had found his queen, but she wasn't Korean. She wasn't from their world. She was something entirely unexpected. Tae-Jin learned about the photograph that afternoon. His lieutenant showed him the image on an encrypted phone, face pale with concern. This is everywhere, sir, the man said nervously. The rival families are talking. Tae-Jin studied the photograph. His jaw tightened, but his eyes softened when they found Nyah's face in the image. She looked peaceful, she looked beautiful, she looked like she belonged beside him. Let them talk, he said finally. His lieutenant hesitated. But your engagement, sir. Miss Park Soo-yeon's family is already demanding explanations. The alliance. Is my concern, Tae-Jin interrupted coldly, not yours. The lieutenant bowed, retreated, disappeared. But the damage was done. Park Soo-yeon, heiress, socialite, the The woman Tae-Jin was supposed to marry had seen the photograph too. She sat in her penthouse across Seoul, her perfectly manicured nails digging into silk cushions. Her eyes burned with something ancient and dangerous. Jealousy. The kind that destroyed empires. The kind that started wars. Find out everything, she told her assistant through gritted teeth. Who she is, where she came from, why she matters. Then her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Then destroy her. Miles away, Nyah stood in the mansion's garden, unaware that her photograph was reshaping Seoul's power structure, unaware that she'd become a target, unaware that the woman who should have been Tae-Jin's future was now planning her destruction. But she felt something. A prickling at the back of her neck, a whisper of danger in the wind. The Black Queen didn't know her title yet. But she would. Very soon. She arrived like a storm in designer heels. Park Soo-yeon swept into the mansion without warning, her entourage trailing behind her like shadows. Security couldn't stop her, wouldn't dare. She was, after all, the woman chosen to become Ryu Tae-Jin's wife. At least she had been. Nyah was in the library when she heard the commotion. Voices raised, doors slamming, then footsteps sharp, aggressive, approaching. The door burst open. Soo-yeon stood there, breathtaking in her fury. Her designer dress hugged her figure perfectly. Her hair fell in waves of midnight silk. Her eyes could have cut diamonds. "So you're the one," she said, her voice dripping with ice. Nyah rose slowly, her spine straightening with quiet dignity. "I don't know what you mean," she replied calmly. "Don't play innocent." Soo-yeon stepped closer, her perfume aggressive, suffocating. "The photograph is everywhere, standing beside him like you belong there, like you're something more than a mistake." Nyah's heart pounded, but she refused to show it. "I didn't choose to be here," she said quietly. "Circumstances." "Circumstances," Soo-yeon laughed, sharp, brittle, cruel. "You're a nobody, a nurse from some hospital that doesn't matter. You have no family, no power, no name anyone recognizes." Then she leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But I will have his empire," she hissed. "I will have his children. I will have everything you're too worthless to dream about." Something snapped in Nyah's chest. Not fear, something older, something her mother had planted deep in her bones. "My name is Nyah Mensah," she said, her voice steady as stone. "My mother saved lives when the world refused to help. My blood carries courage you will never understand, so choose your next words carefully." Soo-yeon's eyes widened, shocked by the resistance, the fire, the absolute refusal to break. "How dare you?" "Enough." The voice cut through the room like a blade. Tae-Jin stood in the doorway, his presence filling every corner. His eyes moved from Soo-yeon to Nyah, then back again. Something dangerous lurked beneath his calm exterior. "Leave," he told Soo-yeon. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Tae-Jin, this woman is destroying everything we've built." "We built nothing," he interrupted coldly. "Our families made arrangements, you accepted terms. That's not building, that's business." Then he stepped aside, revealing the exit. "The engagement is over," he said. "Your family will be informed by morning." Soo-yeon's face crumpled, then hardened into something terrifying. "You'll regret this," she whispered, "both of you." Then she turned, her heels clicking against the floor like gunshots, her entourage scrambling behind her. The door slammed. Silence returned. Nyah stood trembling, not from fear, but from the adrenaline crashing through her system. Tae-Jin crossed the room until he stood before her. His hand rose slowly, hovering near her face but not quite touching. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Nyah looked into his eyes, dark, fierce, utterly focused on her. "What did you just do?" she whispered. "I chose," he said simply. The word echoed between them, heavy with everything. The attack came 3 days later. Nyah was sleeping when the explosion shattered the night. Glass rained down. Alarms screamed. Voices shouted commands she couldn't understand. Then Tae-Jin was there. He burst through her door, blood already streaming from a cut on his forehead. His eyes were wild, not with fear but with something primal. Protection. "Get up," he commanded, pulling her from the bed. "Now." They ran through corridors that had become war zones. Guards fired at shadows. Bodies lay where they'd fallen. The mansion, the fortress, had been breached. "Who?" Nyah gasped as they descended a hidden staircase. "Soo-yeon's family," Tae-Jin replied grimly. "They didn't accept my decision." They emerged in an underground garage filled with black vehicles. Tae-Jin pushed her toward a car, but Nyah stopped. "Wait," she said, her chest heaving. "I can't keep running." "You have to," he insisted, his hand gripping her arm. "They won't stop, not until—" "Until what?" Nyah demanded. "Until I'm dead, until you're dead. This is madness, Tae-Jin." His name on her lips stopped him cold. It was the first time she'd said it without formality, just his name, raw, real. "I can end this," he said quietly, "but it means becoming something darker, something you might not be able to look at." Nyah stared at him, this man who had taken her from her simple life, who had shown her a world of shadows, who looked at her like she was the only light he'd ever known. "I was a nurse in an emergency room," she said slowly. "I've seen death. I've held hands while hearts stopped. I know what darkness looks like." Then she stepped closer, her hand rising to touch his face. The cut, the blood, the exhaustion. "But I also know that darkness doesn't survive without light," she whispered. His eyes searched hers. "You could leave," he said. "I could get you out of Seoul tonight, back to your hospital, back to your life. You could forget this ever happened." "Could I?" Nyah asked softly. "Could you?" The question hung between them, heavy with everything they hadn't said. Tae-Jin's jaw tightened. Then his forehead dropped to rest against hers. The gesture was so tender, so unexpected, that Nyah's breath caught in her throat. "No," he admitted. "I couldn't forget. You're in my blood now, the way your mother's courage was in mine." Nyah closed her eyes. Her old life flickered behind her eyelids, white uniforms, hospital corridors, safe predictability. But it felt distant now, like a photograph of someone else. "Then I'm staying," she said. His hand found hers in the darkness. "Together?" he asked. Nyah squeezed his fingers. "Together." Above them the battle raged on, but below, in that hidden garage, something else was being forged. A partnership, an alliance, a love that would shake Seoul to its foundations. The choice had been made. There was no going back now, only forward into the fire side by side. The night raged above them, but below they were untouchable. 3 months changed everything. The war with Soo-yeon's family ended not with bloodshed but with exposure. Their secrets, the corruption, the brutality, the rot beneath their polished surfaces, spilled into the light. Powerful allies abandoned them. Old alliances crumbled. Then they fell, one by one, into irrelevance. But that wasn't Tae-Jin's doing alone. Nyah had discovered something during her captivity-turned-partnership. She had a gift for seeing patterns. Years of reading patients, their symptoms, their silences, their secrets, had trained her eyes to notice what others missed. She saw weaknesses where Tae-Jin saw walls. She found doors where he saw dead ends. Together, they were devastating. Seoul's underworld watched with a mixture of terror and fascination. The Mafia prince had changed. He was still dangerous, perhaps more than ever, but there was something else now. A stillness, a focus, a queen beside his throne who carried fire in her blood. The Black Queen. The nickname had become something else now, not a scandal but a title, respected, feared, earned. Nyah returned to nursing, but differently now. She opened a clinic in the shadows of Seoul just like her mother had, a place where the wounded could come without questions, where the desperate found healing instead of judgment. Her mother's legacy continued, her own legacy beginning. Tae-Jin visited the clinic every night, not as a king, as a man, as something he'd never thought he could be, someone's peace. Tonight, they stood on the balcony where everything had changed. The same balcony where the photograph was taken, but everything was different now. Seoul glittered below them, vast and violent and beautiful. The city that had tried to break them. The city that now whispered their names with something like awe. "Do you regret it?" Tae-Jin asked quietly. "That night in my car, the mistake that brought you here." Nyah turned to look at him, this man of shadows who looked at her like she was sunrise. "It wasn't a mistake," she said softly. "My mother used to say that the universe doesn't make errors, it makes corrections." His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "Then what was I?" he asked. "A correction." Nyah smiled, the first smile that felt completely free. "You were my destiny," she replied, "wrapped in danger, disguised as a nightmare." Then she leaned against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him, the steadiness, the absolute certainty of his presence beside her. "But I've never been more awake," she whispered. Tae-Jin pressed his lips to her hair. No wedding, no ceremony, no public declaration. Something better. A partnership forged in fire, a love built on ancestral debts repaid, two worlds merged into one. The city continued below them, endless, dangerous, alive. But up here, above it all, Nyah Mensah stood beside Ryu Tae-Jin. Untouchable, unbreakable, unstoppable. The story that started at 11:47 p.m. in a stranger's car had become something legendary. But it wasn't finished, it was only beginning. The Black Queen had found her throne. The night wrapped around them both like home. Seoul waited below.